Hi, I'm Fred Rottnek, Director of Community Medicine at St. Louis University, and I'm honored to be part of this video series for Lent this year. Today I'd like us to look at the Gospel readings from March 31st to April 2nd. Each of these stories has to do with healing and restored relationship, and they're all stories that we're pretty familiar with, hearing many times. Rather than focusing on Jesus' role, which honestly, we would mostly have a hard time understanding that role, or the role of the person who's healed, let's focus on the role and reaction of the bystanders or family members in each of these. In different order, let's start with the reading from April 1st, in which the child of a royal official is healed. The response to that healing of the household is "they believed," which is usually shorthand in John for transformational change. The third reading, the one on April 2nd, in that case, when the man was healed and Jesus told him to pick up his mat and walk, the response he got from the community members was criticism because he wasn't healed the right way. He was healed on the Sabbath. Now let's back up to the story of the prodigal son. We all know the tale. Took his inheritance, went off, squandered it in a life of debauchery. And then he came back basically begging for forgiveness. And unexpectedly, the father of the child stopped everything and threw a party. In today's world, we'd like to think that we have evolved beyond the moralizing of the Jewish community of the day of the Gospels. That's Bobo, by the way. We'd like to think that we have a far more sophisticated and subtle code of ethics, and we don't judge people based on illness, based on behavior, and that we're far more accommodating of what science tells us are vulnerabilities to mental health issues or vulnerabilities to addiction. I spend a lot of time working in addiction right now, and let me tell you that from my observations, we have not evolved that much. We still tend to judge people with substance use disorders as being weak, as having a character flaw, or some kind of moral defect. And before you shut this down and say, "I'm not like that," think about somebody in your family with a mental illness or a substance use disorder. And think if it's more challenging to live with them in the course of your life than it is to reach out to a stranger and be kind to them. We're far more challenged by people in our own backyard. So as we look at the Gospels today and we think about, how do I behave? How do I react? Let's remember that Lent, as is a common phrase this year, is a time to break things. It's a time to look at our biases. It's a time to look at the way we interact with other people and, unfortunately, how we judge other people. We have had the science around for decades that say people with substance use disorders or addictions have biological and genetic reasons, as well as environmental stressors and trauma, that make some people more prone to addiction and mental illness than others. The science is there. Yet too often, we're still obsessed with moral framing and moral failure and thinking that these folks are weak or these folks just aren't trying hard enough. I'm not saying it's easy to change these lenses, and I work on it every day myself. But in this time of the opioid epidemic, where people can drop dead with one use, we need people to know that we love them, we care about them, relationship comes first, compassion comes first, and perhaps sometimes most importantly, when someone comes back to the fold, we need to have the unabashed joy that the father of the prodigal son had in celebrating someone's return to health. So please take some time over the next few days to think about, how do you care for people whose lives have been touched by substance use or mental illness? And take the hard one. Who in my family has been affected by these things, and how am I showing my compassion to them? Thank you very much, and I hope this Lent is one that's productive, prosperous, and readies you for Easter.